Now, before we get into talking about the issues and the seriousness of the upcoming election in 23 days, I want to bring in Jim O'Brien to share with us the philosophy of the politically left versus the politically right, according to Jim's own personal study. And I know that this is going to be something that's very interesting for you folks, so you'll want to stay tuned and listen, because we often talk about the left and the right, but what does that really mean? So, Jim, first of all, welcome back to the microphones of Stand in the Gap today. Can you, in a couple of minutes, just introduce to our audience what this concept of the left and the right is really all about from the biblical perspective, as you have found in your personal study?
Well, Gary, it's good to be with you. Looking at the left and the right, we hear a lot about the right wing and the left wing, and we hear about the left brain and the right brain, and right-handed and left-handed. You know, the words right and left have had so many different meanings over the years, but I think in the recent couple of years, it has really become very focused as far as what right stands for and what left stands for. You know, in the French language, the word for right is adroit. It's an interesting word, isn't it, for the right? And if the word for left in French is gauche, which has a very negative connotation, I think that's quite interesting. You know, in politics, we talk about the far right as conservative and the far right or far left as liberal. But my question is, does the Bible talk about the left and the right? And it actually does. In a number of places, I was quite surprised. In Matthew 25:33, it says goats on the left and sheep on the right. In verse 33, the sheep is on his right hand. The sheep are the type of the docile and the profitable and the innocent and the good. And the left is just the opposite of that, which I think is quite fascinating. The goats are considered to be on the left. This is in the scriptures now. You say, well, that's not true in America, but I'm just sort of relating what the scripture has to say here. Now, when we go into the scripture, when we take a look at what the various parties are embracing, the left versus the right, there's a stark contrast. In fact, I would suggest the contrast has never been greater than it is now. For the right, we are supporting the unborn. We have charity. We have the fruit of the Spirit. We have typically a Judeo-Christian basis for our government. We have independent thinking. We have dependence on God, as opposed to folks that have no religion or actually actively atheistic. Their dependence on God is really not there. They're just dependent on themselves, and maybe also the government, I would also suggest. It's very others-centered. In other words, all of the charities I know about are somehow oriented toward a Christian worldview. If you take that in reverse, in the book of Jude, it talks a lot about what the left is doing as far as being self-centered, being godless, being dishonest, and all of these negative aspects that we see out there, the riots and the terrorism that's going on across our country. I mean, the contrast could not be greater than we're seeing right now, other than open insurrection, which I think we're even seeing some places out in California and Michigan and other places.